Welcome to Our Future is Kind, a podcast exploring how we build the future we want to live in, one kind act at a time. I'm your host, Michael G. Neese, president of Our Future is Kind, and your trusted companion as we search out kindness strategies we can use in our everyday lives. Together, as we chase the idea of building a kinder future, we will interview experts in kindness, team building, human motivation, corporate culture building, relationships, plus politicians, artists, and those with a vision for a healthy and kind future, one we all want to live in and deserve to enjoy together. In addition to interviews, we will consider positive depictions of humanity's future in art, literature, the movies, and media. And we will issue kindness challenges each week, give an update about Our Future is Kind, the company, and what it's doing to stay true to its mission. So, let's dive in. Kristi Trader is a speaker, author, and the founder of Embody Kind. She designs custom experiences for all ages with the intent of embodying kindness in ourselves, others, and our communities. Kristi Trader, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Glad to have you here. Yeah, we have overlapped a few times in the kindness circles, us both being big fans of kindness.
Yep.
But before we dig into that really juicy conversation that I can't wait for, I gave an introduction of you, but I would love for you to tell our audience what makes you, you.
Ooh, that's a big question. What makes me me? So, a little bit of background, perhaps. I stumbled a lot through obtaining my education and figuring out what I wanted to do and be in the world, which was really funny because at like sixth grade, I was very clear, like, this is what I want to do. It's all like laid out. I was very type A, oldest child kind of thing. And so that I found myself in that space of trying out different things. I thought, this is really weird. Like, this is new. This is kind of an experiment for me. And what I found eventually was that I was serving in all these different pockets. And so to kind of give you an idea, I was working with folks in organizations, workplaces, and I was doing leadership development and team building. And eventually I had someone come to me and say, hey, like, what you're doing with adults is kind of what we're doing with students in the classrooms. Would you be interested? And I thought, I mean, I don't know, like, I have 2 kids of my own right now, and it's a little bit of a struggle, but I don't know that I want 30 of them. But I also thought, I saw what they were doing. And yes, like, if we can do this younger, like, how amazing would that be? I could, in my mind, I'm thinking I could work myself out of a job, which, you know, was never really the intent. But the intent was, what a great space we would have for adults to come to work and play if we were able to teach these basic skills earlier. And so what I found my conversation changing from was I'd be at work events and dinners and they would say, you know, so what do you do? And I'm like, I didn't know how to answer that.
Sure.
I said, so I teach executives kindergarten skills. And, you know, it would usually get like a good laugh. And I said, no, I'm serious. Like, really simple things, like use your words, play nice, share, step out from behind your desk, like make yourself presentable. And so then when I had the opportunity to work with kids again, I was like, oh my gosh, now how do I like weave this into that conversation? I was never big on like the small talk. And what I found is that over time, working in these different spaces, all of it came under the umbrella of kindness. And so I think what makes me me is that I do have these unique experiences, you know, from a host of varied spaces that I've been in. And yet I think at the end of the day, it can really all be, you know, dwindle down to that one little niche of like, if we're just kind to each other, if we're good people, if we do the right thing, it really makes us better as a person. It makes the people around us better. And it makes our organizations better. It makes our schools better. It makes our communities better. So that's me.
Yeah, it makes life more fun and happier.
Yes, joyful, right?
Yeah. Well, it sounds fun being you. Can you tell us a little bit more about what are the kinds of things that you do? Because it sounds like you are helping people who are in leadership at organizations, but you also get in front of people to teach them.
Yes.
So walk us through, like, what does a typical day look like for you, or
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
so interesting. Yeah, you and I had a little, pre-conversation, and I was sharing. I just got off a flight, and this is where I'm at, and it's so I travel often, which is a really neat part of my job because I feel like I get to see a really diverse population of the United States. And so that's mostly where I'm at. I do some work in Canada and Guam also. Beyond being in organizations and doing team building and leadership development, I'm in schools. And in the schools, I'm doing bullying prevention workshops, and I'm also doing restorative practices. And that's really with the staff and the students. So helping them come together and be proactive about behaviors and consequences rather than reactive.
So restorative practices, just for the audience here, what does that mean?
Yeah. So I think the best way to describe it is back to that proactive versus reactive thing. Like if we can set up some of these systems in place. So for example, one is we talk about circles, and a circle might be literally like a circle of 20 people, and I've got a talking stick and I've got a question, and I'm going to pass the talking stick around and we're each going to answer. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be long. It's just answer the question real quick. Let us get a better idea of who you are. Because what we find a lot of times is that our environments, especially in the school, cannot be safe. People cannot feel safe if they don't feel like they're seen, observed, acknowledged, witnessed, if somebody doesn't know their story. And so restorative practices is really about setting aside the curriculum for the minute and saying, we're going to learn more about each other so that we can have a better experience together.
You could easily be talking about corporate America right now because
all the time.
People who walk in the door don't feel like they're seen or heard or cared about.
Yes.
Yeah. So you do this also with corporate groups potentially.
I do. Yeah. So corporations, in that space, I really focus a lot on the team building and leadership development because that's the language they use. And so, I say that, and from my perspective, and I think you can probably appreciate this too, so many of the tools are the same things.
Yes.
It's really learning about each other's stories. It's having standards of communication in the way that we talk to each other, the way that we present ourselves to each other, the ways that we value each other. So yeah, very similar.
Well, I do know from having been in corporate America that there are some great success stories. There are pockets of, there are communities within organizations where it feels like everybody is heard and everybody is valued. From my experience, that's usually set by the tone of voice of leadership. And if they haven't bought into that, then it all just falls apart like a house of cards. Is that what you've seen as well?
So here's what I'll say about that. I kind of feel like we're having a personal conversation, which I'm really appreciating here, but I also think this is a nugget that leaders really need to hear. I go into organizations all the time because the leader calls and says, my team isn't functioning right. People don't like each other. All very similar things to the school setting.
Right.
And I said, okay, I'll come in and here's like the idea and what we're going to work through. And after sitting with them for a short amount of time, I quickly observed that the leader is the problem.
Sure.
And that becomes a really uncomfortable conversation because I'm saying, I know you paid me to come in and work with your team, but your team's responding to your behaviors.
Right.
And the expectations that you set and the lack of grace that you show and the uncomfortable values that you have or conflicting values that you have. And so I say that again, in terms of, I really think it's important for leaders to hear that. I want to come in, I want to serve you, and I also need you to be open to that feedback because it's a sports dynamic, right? So often the teams are responding to the coach. So if the coach isn't in the right mindset or they're throwing their hat or their clipboard or their whatever, that sets the tone for the whole team. So thanks for asking that.
Of course, yeah. And for all of those leaders who've tuned into this show, clearly, there are a lot of leadership practices that are, pointed toward we've got to be efficient, we've got to get the deliverables done, we have to make the quarterly marks, and so it's not like we're bashing leaders for the sake of saying, oh, you just don't get it. We know that you are stressed out. We know
Yep.
that you're sprinting after things. It's not
Hmm.
like we don't think you know how to run an organization. You just have other demands, and sometimes forgetting you have people on the journey with you can be
Yes.
one of the biggest things that we try to come in and cure, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think cure is like the right word, right? I think that a lot of times people think there's a right or a wrong, or that they're doing something wrong, or they are wrong. And it's like, no, like this is a communal effort. This is a conversation. This is us learning more about you so that we can help you move in that direction of healing and curing and being in space where the people that come to your workplace are like, oh my gosh, I love going to work. I wake up and I love going because I feel appreciated. I feel seen. I feel valued. They care about me as a person. They use my strengths. And they're aware of my weaknesses, and they don't put me in uncomfortable situations without the right tools.
So it sounds like you are curing a lot of the dysfunction that some people feel when they walk in the door at work every morning, right?
Yes. Yeah, so dysfunction is a great word too. One of my favorite books in the pyramid I use all the time with my teams is Patrick Lencioni's Five Dysfunctions of a Team.
Mm.
And the very foundation of if I can't trust you, I'm not going to have crucial conversations with you. If I can't have crucial conversations with you, we're not going to have resolve. If we don't have resolve, we're not going to get to results, right? Like, so there's levels of this pyramid, and if we don't start at the very foundation of trust, none of those other things happen. And so when you're talking about we know the demands of leaders, and we know that sometimes they feel conflicting, and you're not going to get to those results if you don't start with the just foundation of being a good person and caring about the people around you.
Right. I always think of the people that I meet every day as being treasures, as being
Mm,
wonders of the universe, because they truly are. You'll never necessarily encounter, that same person again and again and again.
yeah.
And that means that you have a finite time and you're lucky to have met them at all.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And all of our paths cross for a reason. I really believe that. And I feel like when I was younger, it was like one of those cliche things that you hear. And the more that I'm around people and the more that I serve in different areas, I even see the people I happen to sit next to on a plane and the short conversation that happens, and me going, oh my gosh, like I don't know if they were sat next to me for a reason or I was sat next to them for a reason, but like something happened here. Like there was some kind of magic that transpired that was important to both of us.
Well, I can imagine sitting next to you on a plane would be just a wonderful, mind-opening and heart-opening experience for anyone.
Thank you. I mean, no promises. If there's turbulence, I get a little nervous, but
That makes sense too. Um, you are a writer.
I
I
am.
want to hear about that. Do you write about
Yes,
all of the things we've been talking about?
I do. So, let's see. I think about 2 or 3 years ago now, I met a beautiful woman. Her name is Lulu, and we were in a writing internship together. And she said, you have got to learn more about this publishing company, Brave Healer. And she said, it is right up your alley. It's got this collaborative approach to it. And I still was doing the, I don't have time. I don't, blah, blah, blah. And the more I learned about this company and connected with the founder, Laura, it really spoke to me because I've always been a writer. I love writing. It's a great way for me to process.
Mm.
What I think I found is that I never felt the need or the desire to be like this sage on the stage kind of thing where like my name was plastered everywhere and people would be like, oh, in her book, Kristi Trader says.
Right,
And I
right,
mean, like
right.
if that happens, great. And I mean, the other part of me says the important thing for me was that the message of kindness got out into the world. And so the way that this happened is that about 20 of us, my colleagues and friends, came together and we talked about this concept of embodying kindness. And we said, so here's how we do it in either the framework of our home, our schools, our communities, and our workplaces. And so each person wrote a chapter. And it was so important to me. And I look back on it and I am so happy with the product that came out of it, because it wasn't me saying, like, look here, you should know about this and follow these commandments kind of thing. It was me saying, like, gosh, like, I've been working in this space now for 20 years, and here's 20 of my favorite people who are working in similar space and how they're doing it. And I think why it was so powerful. So day one, it became a bestseller, which was absolutely wild to us because we had no reason to believe that would happen. People don't know me, so I had no reason to think, like, oh, people know Kristi Trader's book's coming out and they're going to buy it tomorrow.
Right.
So when it happened, I was so excited because it wasn't about me. It was about this collaboration of people saying, we're making a movement, and that's what we called it. We called it a transformational movement towards really operating in these spaces with kindness.
I cannot wait to get my copy of the book. Where can I find it?
I will send you one signed.
Okay.
And actually, so I will actually put this out there. I always love promoting the book and sending people copies. I've never looked to make a dime on this, as much as I'm just excited about getting those stories into people's hands. The way that it's broken up, it really reminds me of kind of like a chicken soup for the soul kind of book, where you could just open and read somebody's story. You don't have to read it cover to cover. If you're not a reader, that's okay. You know, some of them might resonate with you and some of them might not. But I say all of this to say I have free e-copies. And so if people are interested and they're an e-reader, I am happy to send them one. They can hit me up on any social, and I will send one their way.
Wonderful. All right. And just remember to mention that you heard Kristi on our Future is Kind podcast, so she knows how you got into her orbit, because it's going to be a great read. You need to get a copy. So
yeah.
Wonderful. That is fantastic. Yeah, I'm familiar with Laura. I've worked with her on a book as well, and she's a fabulous human being. So
super dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. So we had talked a little bit before we started recording here, and I wanted to dig into something that you had said to me.
Yes.
One of the complaints about kindness and people saying, you should be kinder, you should have these practices, and you should do it is what? What's the big complaint?
Yes. So I was sharing with you that I was recently speaking with a psychiatrist friend who is doing some work around pain in the brain and really trying to identify when we feel something physical in our bodies. Is it because we're actually physically feeling that thing, or is it because there's something in our brain that's telling us we're feeling that thing? And so I think one of the easiest ways that I describe it in the classrooms is I talk to kids about, hey, have you ever said, I don't want to go to school today because I have a headache or a stomach ache, or have you heard your siblings do that? And of course they all say yes. And so what I ask them is, okay, so here's something we know. We know that every day, 160,000 students in the United States stay home because they feel like they're mistreated at school. That stat is staggering to me because there's so many other stats about kids being mistreated at home.
Right.
And so I do an activity with them and we talk about, do you have a safe person at school? Do you have a safe person at home? And the number of kids that don't have a safe person in either space is eye-opening. So I say this because I think those are things that we can measure, right? Like, so when I was speaking with the psychiatrist, he said, I'm committed to kindness, and it's squishy still for me. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how that looks on a dashboard or on a scorecard or on a report card, right?
Right.
How do we measure? And so, you had said something interesting to me that I think is a really great, so I have some of my own for Embody Kind, but I think that there's some very basic things. And so in Michigan, for example, there was just some legislation around feeding kids at school. and really the importance of, there's science that tells us that if people aren't well nourished, they're not going to learn.
Right.
And so then there's a whole discipline structure around like, well, you didn't do this, or you didn't pass that, or you didn't, etc. When you kind of have to go back and go like, well, I don't know, did they have breakfast this morning? Like, are mom and dad okay at home?
Right.
Are their basic needs being met? Do they have running water? Do they have electricity? Do they have clothes on their back? Um, and it sounds so crazy to say in some ways, because I think that some people are like, well, that's what happens at home and that needs to stay at home. And I will say, working in both schools and workplaces, that what I have consistently found to be true is the things that are happening at home will always affect your other spaces.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. There's a really wonderful study that was done years ago where they looked at judges who were passing sentences on to various people coming into their courtrooms and the time of day. And if it was right at the start of the day, they had just had their breakfast or the coffee or whatever it was, these were the most well thought out, well reasoned, mindful, kind sorts of decrees that were handed down. And the closer you got to lunchtime, the harsher the penalties, the harder the time that had to be done. And then right after lunch, there was another burst of, generosity of spirit and kindness. And then over time it eroded. And by the time you got to the late afternoon, you did not want to be on the docket for late afternoon. I mean, if you had a sentence handed down by that judge, the nicest of judges, who's not really focused on, this phenomenon, they might hand down a harsher judgment than they would have earlier in the day.
Yes. Yeah. So familiar with that study, and I think it speaks volumes. And I think, the same thing is happening in our classrooms and in our workplaces. We have so many people who don't take lunch. And it seems like a silly thing, but it's like, oh my gosh, even if we're biological animals, just like any other animal. If all you do is go get some fresh air, get some water, eat something basic. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but like, take a break, be mindful, be kind to yourself.
Right. Well, and you and I both worked in classrooms. The younger the kids, the more socially acceptable it is for the kid to just run up to you and give you a hug. Right. Or a high five or fist bump or something. Right. And just have a nice interaction that puts a smile on your face and a smile in your heart. And I mean, I think that's also a piece that can like just flee us, whether we're in the workspace or we're at school or we're at the YMCA or wherever. If it's just, I'm processing you and this is a transaction, you lose that. And then it's hard for you to be nice to the next person. Right. No matter which side of the interaction you're on, it's harder. Right. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So one of my favorite white flip charts, I was going to say whiteboard, flip charts that I use is it's a circle, right? It looks like a bullseye. And what I talk to students about, and even adults, is that we can only control ourselves. That's all we have control over. And when we are focused on that space and we're turned inward, we also then have the opportunity to be more mindful and intentional about the ripple effect that we're giving out to those around us. And so I, give the kids the example of like, you've seen a pebble dropped into water. What happens? Like it ripples out. And it's the same with us. Like the way that we show up is the way the people around us are going to show up. Because it's in our biology to react to anything that is given to us. So we receive something, and when we receive it, it's not within our normal biological tendency to go like, you know what? Let me breathe about that for a minute and think before I respond.
Right.
I think it would be great if it was our normal, natural biological response. It just doesn't happen to be. And so I think a lot of times we have an obligation to our communities to find ourselves in that space and to be more intentional. I have a lot of rings that I wear, but this one in particular, I just recently got, I don't know if you can see, but it spins.
Oh, cool.
And I love it because I heard a story, and I believe it was Brene Brown, and I might be embellishing it some, but what I heard from the story was she's going through the line, at school pickup, and they're like, hey, Brene, do you want to bring brownies tomorrow for the PTA bake sale? And She's like, oh, of course, she just says yes because that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And she goes home with really good intentions. Like she's going to get her grandma's brownie recipe out and she's going to make these great brownies and put them on a special platter. And, the next morning, it's like the reality of parenting. She's like, get in the car. We got to go. I got to stop at the grocery store and get brownies. And, like the whole deck of cards that you were talking about all of a sudden like has collapsed. And I bring that up because she had this neat idea about a spinny ring. And what she does now is when someone asks her something, she is spinning the ring 3 times.
Right.
And she's not showing it to anyone else, but she's doing it for herself. So she does take that pause. She does take that breath to really decide how she wants to react and respond in that moment.
Which is a brilliant, it's a stroke of genius to take a moment to really process it. It's like somebody says, how are you doing? Fine. Right? It's just that knee-jerk reaction. But if you really thought about it, you might say, oh, I'm doing really well today. I feel inspired and really excited to be alive.
Yeah.
Well, that's a better answer than fine. And having the harder answer of, oh, I'm not doing so great this morning, at least it's honest.
Yes. It's honest, and I think what it does is it gives people the opportunity to show up for us in our moments of vulnerability. Something that, and so the subtitle of my book is A Guide to Authentic Living. And it's been a value of mine for so long that I feel like if we can show up authentically as human beings that are just messy, and the answer is not always going to be that the day is going great. Sometimes it's going to be that, do you want the real answer? Like, it's not going so hot today. It gives us, that other person, the opportunity to show up for us and to also witness us in that space. I believe it was C.S. Lewis that said, friendship happens at the moment when someone says, what? You too? I thought I was the only one. And it gives that moment for people to go like, oh my gosh. So yeah, she wrote a book and it became a bestseller and she's got 3 degrees and all these other things, right? That look so pretty on my website. And she's got 2 kids who sometimes drive her crazy and her flights are late and she didn't have that in her calendar and all these other things, right? That we don't schedule for, but are just as important for me to show up and share with other people, because when I do that, they can see that I'm human and they can appreciate the space that I'm coming from even more. And they can have that moment of like, wow, me too. Like I'm having a crappy day. And now all of a sudden, like we can talk about it and maybe move forward.
Right. And help each other. Which is,
yes.
Yeah. Which is great. I want to let everybody who's tuned into this conversation, I want them also to know that you're talking a lot about human connection. You're talking about trying to cultivate kindness within ourselves and also outside in the workplace and schools and in our communities. I wanted to let everybody know that Kristi Trader is going to be facilitating a breakout group multiple times during something called the Human Summit, which is coming up November 13th, World Kindness Day. So if you haven't already bought a ticket to that, the Human Summit is going to be this wonderful time for us all to examine what are the roadblocks, what are the obstacles to us finding kinder ways of interacting all across the board. So Kristi, I'm just going to put you on the spot here for a second. Yeah.
No pressure.
Just thinking about greater human connection and Human Summit and World Kindness Day. What are you looking forward to most out of that?
Oh, I love the word connection. And it's one of those words that I selfishly hope doesn't ever get overused. And people are kind of like, well, wait, I don't know what that means anymore because we use it so much.
Right.
But I think what it speaks to me and what I feel like I'm seeing in organizations and schools, even in homes, is that people are literally dying for connection. And in one way, that seems so silly to say because we're always connected. I hopped on a plane this morning, and when I was on the plane for the second time in a row this week, the Wi-Fi was down, and I was having this moment of, you got to be kidding me. I got stuff to do. Like I'm losing time, like not having access right now.
Right.
But it's interesting how much we've become wired to that connection. And yet if I'm to be honest, I think some of the connection that we're having in those spaces really lacks in being substantial. And so there's an image that I use with organizations sometimes, and it literally is like the old cubicles, and people are hanging their hands over the cubicles to try and touch the other person. And I found it so heart-wrenching because I think right now we're doing the same things, but we're doing it with our devices. So maybe we don't have physical walls up,
Right.
but we have these devices that are constantly between us and someone else. And while we think we're being connected because there's some kind of, you know, back and forth with that connection online,
Right.
it's not real. It's not deep. And so I think for me around connection, I'll tell you a little story, and you might have heard this before, but it's one of my favorite, and I've been using it for probably literally decades. And I have to say, it was a huge learning moment for me. I had a boss at the time who had given me an assignment to come up with a communication presentation. And I thought, this is the dumbest thing ever. Like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I feel like this is really self-explanatory.
Right.
And what I learned through the experience is that we teach what we need to learn.
Okay.
And what I found that I needed to learn was different ways of communicating and connecting. And in that space, the story I want to share with you is a study that was done with rabbits at Ohio State University. And I will say I'm not an Ohio State University fan. However, this researcher was really pretty epic. So what they did was they fed rabbits a really gross high cholesterol diet for a period of time. And the reason they did it was because they were trying to make the connection between, if we give you this really gross diet, you will get heart disease.
Right.
And so what they found the first time around was it was only true for half of the rabbits. And they tried to figure out why. So the researcher said, okay, we need to redo the study all over again. Like, didn't give necessarily any hints or reasons, just said, I need you to do everything the way you did it the first time and like better documentation this time.
Okay.
What they found second time around was there were actually two different sets of rabbits that were being fed. And the way they were fed is what was different. So research assistant 1 would open the cage, give the rabbit the food, later on come back, take the bowl out. Researcher 2 would actually open the cage, take the rabbit out, set it on her lap. She would touch it, she would talk to it, she would pet it while it was being fed, and then she'd place it back in the cage. So, you know, being a scientist, it comes out again the same way. And the researcher says, that can't be true. Like, that doesn't even add up to me. And so he says, we're going to do it a third time. So they do it a third time, and it comes out 3 times running, same exact results. And what he ends up saying at the end, which I thought was so interesting, he said, so I guess the moral of the story is, if you're going to eat a Big Mac or a Whopper or whatever on the way home, you better make sure you get a hug when you walk through the door.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, wow, like so simple, but so true. And I'm not telling everybody to, you know, go eat a high cholesterol diet and it's okay if you're getting a bunch of hugs. But I think the connection between the love and care and attention that we show people, not only in our words and actions, but also in even just physical touch. It can just be, I mean, literally touching someone's hand, touching their arms, their shoulders, giving them a hug if you're comfortable. That connecting point is literally starving people and killing people.
It is as essential to us as air and water and food to have connection and feel that sense of worth and love. So yeah, no, it's a fascinating study. I'm gonna have to go find that. That's amazing.
Yes, I love it. I have a little video I can send you.
Yeah.
And I believe I just saw this the other day, and I might get it wrong. I believe it's a book called The Kindness Effect. And they cite the study and kind of talk through, like, what does this mean in our organizations and workplaces? And so
It's wonderful. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Time is flying by here.
It is.
We're going to have to dive into some standard questions that I ask all of our guests.
Okay,
So, are you ready to go on a little thought
I'm ready.
experiment? Okay. So, Kristi Trader, we are going to step into a time machine. We're going to go forward 100 years, right? We're going to
Okay.
go to roughly the year 2125. And we're going to look around. And what I'm telling you as I'm steering the ship and moving all the levers and getting us ready to go 100 years in the future is, Kristi, we did all the right things. We did everything right. We did all of the right things. You step out of the time machine and look around. What are you looking for to confirm that we did do all the right things?
Yeah, good question. So in my work with Embody Kind, I usually point out four things that I feel like I see in spaces that are healthy, well balanced, safe. Um, and those four things are one, consideration. Are we being considerate of others? We might not know their story, but we don't even need to know their story. Like, are we just showing basic human consideration for other? Two would be friendliness. Simple, are we being kind? Are we being nice? Are we being polite? Ways in which we interact with each other. The third one would be affection. And kind of back to that rabbit study, I know a lot of people can be like, I don't know, same thing with, I leave my work at home, or I'm sorry, I leave my work at work, or, I think for me, after seeing that study and knowing the research, there is room for affection in our workplaces, in our schools, in our homes. It doesn't have to be awkward. And you gave the example earlier of a student running up and, giving someone a hug. And at some point in time, we lose those really basic ways of actually having physical connection with people. And I think that's really important. And then the fourth one I would say, and again, it's probably like out on a limb for some people, is love. And I think that can mean different things for different people, and that's absolutely okay. But I think the premise of, are we loving each other well? Are things that I feel like I can look in an environment and kind of do a scan and see, like, are people actually behaving this way? Or are those just like values that are up on a wall kind of thing?
Right. There's plenty of lip service out there these days about core values and hearing and seeing each other and having mutual respect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we're in the future and you're looking for that. And if you see the consideration and the friendliness and the affection and the love, if you're seeing that in great abundance, then you know we nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it really changes how, I'll give you maybe a silly example. When you are first exploring relationships, there's that moment of like giddiness where like everything looks more rosy, and you stand up taller and you're brighter and you're nicer and all these things, right?
Right.
And that's the kind of vibe that I feel like I can look around organizations or workplaces or homes, and I can see that when people are exhibiting those four behaviors.
Love it. Love it. Okay, so now here comes the impossible follow-up question. I said that we did all the right things.
Uh-huh.
What are those right things?
Oh, I think the first one, so this is interesting, and I'll probably touch on this as we keep chatting, but I've been working with a woman, Robin Simpson, with Kind Community Project. And we have just had this really neat synergistic connection. And her and I connected so well because of, strange enough, the word connection. We both had a commitment to showing up and meeting people where they were and witnessing them and allowing them to be messy and human. So that would be one, is the connection aspect. And I think the second one would be collaboration. There's the African proverb about, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that's so true in so many aspects of everything. We have become such an individualistic society, and that's showing gravely in how successful we are in certain areas. And I think if we could get back to that space of collaboration, I'll give you an example. I have two boys. They both played sports together, which was, as a parent, amazing. They were on like the same teams and everything. And I'm like, man, this works great into my calendar.
Wow.
When they played baseball together, one was a pitcher. And he was always, I think in baseball, the pitcher is always looked at like, you're the hot shot on the team, like this is rising or falling on you kind of thing.
Right.
And I could even sense him get frustrated sometimes and kind of feel like, where are the people behind me? Like, you are supposed to be backing me up. I'm doing my job. Why aren't you showing up to do your job?
Right.
So that's child number one. Child number two was in center field.
Okay.
And he decided one day that it was time for signups again. And he said, I'm not playing next year. And he had a little attitude about it. And I said, oh, I mean, I don't care, but I just was wondering why. And he said, because they never let me pitch, thinking his brother must have the more important role on the team.
Right.
And I said, wait, do you know why they play you in center field? And he's like, yeah, because they don't want me pitching. And I thought, well, I didn't want to at the time bring up that he did give up 11 runs in a game and then lost. I mean, that was a poor coaching choice. That was not his fault. I think the experiment ran a little too long on that one.
Right.
But I said, they play you in center field because you are the fastest kid on the team and you catch every ball that comes your way. He still wasn't having it. Like, he did not want to hear that. What do I know? I'm just mom.
Right.
And so we had, after each game, like the parents would kind of stick around, like after the kids did their huddle. And I'm going to get emotional sharing this.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman that stayed behind. And he shook my son's hand. And he said, son, I want you to know that you were born to play center field. I don't know this man from Adam, where he came from, how he showed up. And that, for my son, changed the course of his confidence and belief in himself. And so I bring that up because I think that so much of this comes back to that team mentality of no position is right or wrong. They're different. And we can't play the game with only a pitcher or only a catcher or only a center fielder. We have to have every single position on the team. And so when we know, I guess the old saying, when we know who's on first, the rest of us play better.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. What a wonderful blessing that man was there.
Yeah. To this day, I still have no idea who he was.
Well, he delivered the right message at the right time of, son, you matter, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. So I hope that we build this wonderful future together and that we can go and see everybody collaborating more and that we, arrive at this kinder space. What I want to ask you next is, not every day is great. There are some hard news days. There are difficult days where, like one of your kids is not doing well, or your spouse, or one of your best friends. It could be anything. What do you do to stay kind and to stay inspired? Because some days you don't want to be inspired because everything is just terrible. How do you pick yourself up from that?
Yeah. So for me, and I think this is, can be individual for everyone, but something I found really helpful is I've done a lot of work around breath work. And just the simple, I gave you the example with the spinning ring, but just the idea of pausing, taking a breath, slowing down. We live in such a fast-paced society that and we've been taught that if you're asked a question, you have to respond right away because you have to have the answer. And being able to just sit back and go like, wait a minute, I didn't know what the question was going to be, so I'm allowed to have a minute to think
Right.
before I respond and say something that maybe I don't even really think is true or align with, but I said it because I felt like I had to say it because that's how we live
Right.
with each other. So one would be breath work. I think another one would be, this is super interesting, this question. So earlier today, there was some new science that was published on neurodivergence, which I experience all the time in the classroom. A little bit of background. My son was diagnosed with sensory processing disorder when he was early elementary. And now looking back and knowing what I've felt for some time, but now there's some science for is really cool. I was never really sure that it was as much of a diagnosis as much as there was a book, and I can't remember for verbatim, but it was like too loud, too fast, too bright, too something.
Right.
And what I think is true, or more true, is that we are observing life at paces we were never biologically created to participate in.
Right.
And so now, of course, we've moved from every kid has sensory processing disorder to every kid has ADHD or every kid has autism. And not that I disagree with some of those diagnoses, and I probably should, big caveat, like I am not a medical doctor, but I can tell you from my experience in these spaces what I see and what I feel like I observe. And I think we've become so attached to having a name for everything. That name can then sometimes have negative connotations for the individual who that name is being placed upon. And what's interesting is what the science is showing is that the theory is that neurodivergence is actually a adaptive or a defense response to environmental incompatibility. So we're in an environment that is not compatible with the way that we were wired. And because we can't keep up, or because we can't do this, or because we can't do that, we're labeled as something that is different or other than that environment. When I think the real truth is we're all unique, we're all different. None of them are right or wrong. And so I say all of that to kind of come back to beyond breath work. I think I've come to this space of perspective that I'm Kristi. I'm going to show up in a different space or in a different way than Michael's going to show up. It doesn't mean either one of us are right or wrong. It means that we're in the environment wired differently. And back to the team analogy, we each bring a part. And so if I'm trying to take center fielder and play him as pitcher and we're losing the game, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with center fielder. It means we're playing him in the wrong position.
Right.
And so I think that for me is something that I can really look in so many environments that I work in and say, if we could stop labeling people and stop pushing pills and just look at someone and be kind and compassionate and considerate, like, what is their story? Who are they? Why are they showing up this way? The science of it gets like really into the nitty gritty of, different populations being wired for certain environmental situations. And then when we put people in a different environment and expect them to behave in a way they weren't wired to behave,
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that person. And I don't even want to say there's something wrong with ADHD or autism or any neurodivergence, but I think what's wrong is when we put labels on people because we don't want to think outside of the box that this person is different than me. That's it.
Yeah, it's seeing people as individuals, not as with big, broad brush strokes.
Yes, and celebrating that uniqueness, right? Like, I had this really amazing woman recently that I was watching a reel of, and she gave kids a set of markers, and each kid got a separate instruction on an index card. And so it said, we're going to have this contest in the classroom, and whoever can create the most beautiful landscape in the next however long, I'm going to do some like personal work with you. Like you're going to have an up in the classroom kind of thing.
Okay.
Each kid got like a deficit of some sort, right? Like you can only use red, or you can't color this part of your picture, or you can't this, or you can't that. And so when everybody's done, she puts them all up. And of course, she already knows who the winner is going to be because that person like didn't get any instructions. It's just like this beautiful,
Right.
scene. But it was an opportunity for her to kind of have the same conversation. Like we all come to things in a different space. And what if we took away all of those limitations from each other and we collaborated instead and said, you know what, I can't use red, but if you can use red, like, can we paint this together?
Right. Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So you have an audience here, our Future is Kind podcast audience. They're dedicated. They want to see the world change in all the best ways. Do you have books, podcasts, practices that you would recommend for people to dig into that you think would be helpful for them in their journeys?
Yeah. So the biggest one right now for me is this Kind community project that I had mentioned previously with Robin Simpson. She and I came to know each other because there was a group of people in the kindness space that we were doing some networking. And the constant thread that I felt like I was hearing from people is, I want to do more, but there's only one of me. And I'm tired and like everything is exhausted. I have nothing left to give kind of thing.
Right.
And so I said, well, what does that look like? Like what would solve that for you? And it was interesting because so many people said other people would help solve that.
Right.
So we all came together and we said, okay, what does this look like? And what it ended up looking like was a clearinghouse of sorts. So now there is this platform. And what it is for us is a space where there's no more doom scrolling. You come on Kind Community Project, and it is all about, there's a feed, it's positive. We're talking about kindness. We're talking about good things that are going on in the world. There's this huge negative news narrative that's happening. And instead, we're saying, like, no, we're going to flip that. And we're going to say, come over here and join us. Like, you don't have to be on these other platforms. Do they serve a purpose? Sure. Do I think we've gotten away from the purpose they were intended to serve? Yes. So we have a lot of content on there in terms of you can do courses. We've got ways that you can certify your organization or your school as a kind community. We've got spaces where there's encouragement. There's a calendar of all the kind events that we know of that are going on. Every month we release new practical tools, resources for people to use. We've got private space set up just like any other social media situation where you can, host your own groups. And then I think one of the most important things, I kind of alluded to this in the beginning, is the positive news aspect. So kind of to tag a little bit onto that, we just opened a challenge. I actually just posted about it today, called Kindness Counts. And our goal is to reach 1 million acts of kindness that we document and record together as a society.
Yeah.
And yeah, huge goal, right?
Yeah.
And yet what we think, or what we're at least, seeing in neuroscience, is that everything that we interact with and that we touch and that we view is always constantly wiring us. And so can we rewire what we're seeing? And so it's super simple. We're like, hey, if you see kindness, we want you to celebrate it. We want you to post it on socials, use the hashtag kindness counts 2025, and we're going to watch this grow together. And so for me, that's been the number one thing that I would say has been a great resource. We've got a free space for people to come in and just use a feed if they want to, similar to any other social media feed. If you're interested in more than that and you want to dig into some of our content, there is a paid space. The paid space for the first 50 members is going to be 50% off for your life of your membership. And I'll tell you, I think it's still in Australian dollars on the website. So for those of us in the States, it's like half off already.
Yeah. So how do people get to this space? Where can they find it?
Yeah, so yeah, you can of course on any platform look up Kind Community Project. And the other thing I'll do for your listeners is I will actually send you a link that maybe you can put in the description of our
Yeah.
chat so that if people want to link directly to it and they want to use that offer, they can absolutely do that.
It'll definitely be in our show notes for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been, I think, for me, one of the most inspiring places for connection lately because people are all there with a similar mindset. Like they're sick of what's going on over here. Like it's become a bunch of noise. It's become really discouraging. And so how do we change that narrative to something more connected and collaborative?
It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
So, Kristi Trader, where can people find you other than in the Kind Community Project space? How can
Yeah.
they get into your orbit? How can they find your books? Just tell us how to reach you.
Yeah, so I'm on all socials under my name, Kristi Trader, and I'll spell it for you because
Yes.
I know all Kristis are different. So it's Kristi, Kristi. Last name is Trader, like Trader Joe's. Or you can look up Embody Kind. That's really a lot of what I do my work under with the premise of, we're embodying kind in ourselves, and we're helping that happen in schools and in workplaces. So
Lovely.
Kristi Trader or Embody Kind.
Lovely. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Kristi, I cannot wait to be at the Human Summit with you November 13th.
Same.
I think it's going to be so much fun. And I know that whatever group that you are helping with the breakouts and really digging into, how to overcome obstacles to us being kinder in all of these different spaces, whatever group gets you, I envy because I know it's going to be really, really, it's going to be so top notch. So,
yes.
So, Kristi Trader, thank you for coming on our Future is Kind podcast.
Thank you for having me. And thank you. I just want to put a thank you out there for putting together this Human Summit because I think it's a really beautiful opportunity that is so necessary right now for people to find that connection, and to find people who have the same framework, the same value set, the same desire to really flip that negative narrative that we see going on in so many spaces. So thank you.
I'm glad to be a big part of it and glad that you're going to be there with me. It's going to be so much
Yes.
fun.
Yep. Very good. Well, thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. This episode's Kindness Challenge. Before your next meeting or class, pause, breathe, and center yourself. You deserve your own attention first. Do one act of kindness today and log it using hashtag KindnessCounts2025. Join the global movement toward 1 million acts of kindness. Want to stay inspired so you can stay kind? Practice breath work. Slow down and spin the ring before answering. Presence leads to better connection. Get a copy of The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and read it cover to cover. Explore kindcommunityproject.com. Rewire your feed with uplifting news, events, and shared kindness missions. Thanks again for listening to our Future is Kind podcast, a podcast in search of a kinder future. Go out there and do something kind.